Good morning. Okay, one more time, loud enough for the folks on Zoom to hear us. Good morning. Welcome to United First Parish Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, welcome to our Unitarian Universalist spiritual community. As we gather today, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Neponset Band of the Massachusetts tribe, an indigenous people who have lived here for generations and who live here to this day. I'm the Reverend Rebecca Froome, lead minister here at United First Parish Church. Whether you are joining us here in the sanctuary or over Zoom, welcome. Whether you are local to Quincy or the South Shore or from further away, welcome. If this is one of your first times visiting with us, worshiping with us, or we are a regular or periodic spiritual home for you, welcome. I do extend a special welcome to any guests or first or second time visitors we may have with us this morning. If this is one of your first times worshiping with us and you feel comfortable, I invite you to raise your hand up high so our ushers can bring you a small token of welcome. Do we have any first time or return? Oh, yeah, Bill, come on over here and give a rose to Olga, who is our new music instructor with Spirit Circle. So you can come all the way up, Bill. We're going to introduce Olga now. So welcome, Olga. She's going to be our Spirit Circle instructor with music once a month. And so Bill's going to give you one of your newcomer roses. Bill, right over here. Thank you. And she'll be with our kids later today. And if we have any other visitors, you don't all have to stand up and come forward, but you can raise your hand up high. I think I saw one other visitor. Right over here, Bill, behind you that way. So visitors, members, friends are all welcome to join us for social hour following the service. We gather in the parish hall here behind me, and I'll be standing here by this door and look forward to greeting you on the way there. We, as always, have a fabulous team of folks helping make worship happen. We've got our staff of Norman on piano and organ. We've got David Bosquin on infrastructure in every place. We have a team of greeters and ushers that includes Bill Westland and Jackie Rodriguez and Albert Vaughn and Sharon Gamache. Social hour hosted by Leslie and our live stream team today. We've got Carl and Fiona, it looks like, so thank you one and all for making worship happen. We strive to be a welcoming community to people of all ages and abilities. In the back of our sanctuary near our ushers, you can find hearing assistance headsets, large print hymnals, activities for children. And if you have any questions about our physical space, you can ask our ushers. For folks joining us online, we'll be posting hymn lyrics and words to unison readings in the chat as we go along. And now, as we prepare ourselves for worship, let's take a deep breath together, feeling that spirit of life, that spirit of love that moves within, between, and beyond us all. And with our hearts open for worship, I invite Claire Fitzmaurice and Mimi Balsamo, who have been the co-chairs of our Quincy Standout for Black Lives, to come and share a reading as we light our chalice, symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith tradition.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. From the Passover Haggadah.
Thank you for lighting our flame this morning and in many ways over the last 3.5 years. I invite folks to rise in body or spirit and join me in reading the words of covenant found in your order of service or the chat. As a free fellowship of this historic church, we unite to lift our hearts and open our minds to a larger reality, to accept, support, and encourage one another, to seek the wisdom in all religions, to cherish and sustain the web of life, and to strive for justice, compassion, and peace. I invite us to greet one another in the spirit of fellowship and peace. And as we remain standing, let us lift our voices in song. We're going to sing hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land. And this is a hymn that draws on beautiful words of scripture, and it seeks to be inclusive, but in the way that language changes, it ends up having a gender binary. So where it says brothers and sisters, if you would like, you can say siblings in spirit. And if that doesn't quite work for you, you can say brothers and sisters in the spirit of inclusion in which it was written. So let us sing together. We'll build a land where we bind up the broken seated. And I invite our children and Spirit Circle community to come up to these front pews and join me for a message for all ages. Good morning. I wonder what we have in the mystery basket this morning. It's several copies of the same thing. Does anyone want to look in and see? Can you grab one and tell me what it is?
School bus. School bus.
It's a bus. Yeah, it looks like a school bus maybe, or it might also look like a city bus. And I'm wondering, Olga, can we throw you right in and you help the kiddos each get a copy of the bus? Yeah. Yes, you guys can get a copy of that bus and then come sit down near Marie Louise. Yeah. Good to see new and returning faces. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so today we have a story called Rosa. And it is a story about a real woman named Rosa Parks. And this version is written by a writer named Nikki Giovanni. So it's going to involve a bus, so pay attention for that part, okay? Mrs. Parks was having a good day. It was the first day of December, and Christmas was right around the corner. Now, she knew it would be a busy season at work. She was a seamstress, and lots of people would want some fancy little extras on their holiday clothes. Now, this Thursday, at the beginning of the month, they were actually ahead of schedule. And so her supervisor said, "Why don't you go on home early, Rosa?" And she said, "Okay, see you in the morning," and walked to the bus. Now at the bus, she fiddled, oh yeah, you guys are holding up the bus, you were on it. She fiddled in her pocket for a dime, which was the price of the bus at that point in 1955. And she had her dime in hand, and when the bus came, she went to the front of the bus to give her fare, her dime, and then, as was the evil custom of the time, she got off the bus, walked back to that back door, and got on the bus. Because at that point in the city where she lived, black people and white people weren't supposed to sit on the same part of the bus. Now, the back of the bus where black people were supposed to sit was all full. So she sat in the middle section, the neutral section, that sometimes was for African Americans and sometimes for white Americans. So she sat down with her sewing basket and started thinking about what to cook for dinner and was just doing her own thing. And she noticed that the bus was starting to fill up. And then she heard the bus driver say, "Give me those seats." And Mrs. Parks, well, she looked up in surprise. She looked up in surprise and saw that two men on the opposite side of the aisle, who had dark skin like her, were moving to go into the really crowded back of the bus, because someone with light skin wanted that seat. But that day, Mrs. Parks decided that she was going to stay right there in her seat. And the bus driver said, "If you don't move, I'm going to call the police." "Do what you must," Mrs. Parks said. She decided she wasn't frightened that day. She was going to do what felt right. So she sat. And while she sat, she thought. She thought about all sorts of people who had also said that some rules and laws weren't fair. She thought about people who said that life was separate but equal, and then a court that said separate is not equal, and segregation should happen. She thought about all of this, and she thought about how tired she was. Not tired from work, but tired from being told where to sit and what water fountain to drink in, and tired from being told where to be. She thought about her mother and her grandmother and how they would want her to be strong. And so she sat. A policeman came and said, "Auntie, are you going to move?" And with all the strength of all of those ancestors behind her, Rosa Parks said, "No." Now, at that same time, almost dinner time, across town, there was a friend of hers named Joanne Robinson buying food for dinner. And in the grocery store, a friend of hers, someone that she knew from the Women's Political Council, said that Rosa Parks had been arrested. "Oh no, not Mrs. Parks," exclaimed Mrs. Robinson. "Pass the word," she said. "Pass the word to our sisters in the Women's Political Council. We're going to meet at 10 o'clock tonight in my office." Mrs. Robinson was also Dr. Robinson, a professor at a local university. So after she put her kiddos to bed, she went to that organizing meeting and met with 25 other women, and they said a prayer together that they were doing the right thing. And then they started making flyers, hundreds and hundreds of flyers using the stencil makers and printer and paper from the university. They thought they might get in trouble for doing that without asking. But they thought if Rosa was strong enough and brave enough to stick up to the police, that they were going to go ahead and make these flyers too. They made so many flyers that they could pass them out to nearly every African American household in the entire city of Montgomery. And this is some of what the flyers said. They said, "No riders today. Support Mrs. Parks. Stay off the buses. Walk on Monday." And people saw these flyers and said, "To support Mrs. Parks, we're gonna boycott the buses. And none of us are gonna get on the buses and spend our dimes on those buses until the laws are changed and things are fair." They said this at a mass meeting where all sorts of people from different community organizations were there. And they said, "Oh, we need a spokesperson to speak to the public," and they called on a young minister named Martin Luther King Jr. Anyone heard of him? Talking about him in school this week? Yeah, and all these organizers that had been around for a while invited him to be the spokesperson. And so they protested and they boycotted the bus. They walked to work and walked to school. They walked in the rain. They walked in the hot sun. They walked in the morning and they walked at night. They walked at Christmas that month. And then they kept walking at Easter. They walked on the 4th of July. They walked on Labor Day. They walked on Thanksgiving. And then it was almost Christmas, and they still walked. Now, people from all over the country, all over this country, wanted to support the people that were part of this boycott, all these people that were walking. So people from around the country sent shoes and coats and all the things that might help people walk instead of taking the bus. And after almost a year after she was arrested, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that segregation on the buses, like segregation in the schools, was wrong and illegal. Rosa Parks said no to getting up so that the Supreme Court could remind the nation that the Constitution of the United States makes no provisions for second-class citizenship. We are all equal under the law and are all entitled to its protection. The integrity, the dignity, and the quiet strength of Rosa Parks turned her quiet no into a loud yes for change. Thank you all for listening to Rosa's story, which is a story so much bigger than her as well. And now you all are going to get to have your first Spirit Circle class with Miss Olga. We have Mariah as our Spirit Circle host. So you guys can head on down that back aisle and let's all the grown-ups sing them on their way. Through the sharing of our joys and our sorrows, we create a sacred space where we are deeply present with ourselves and one another. This is a time to briefly share the life milestones that lift your spirits in joy or hope, or the pains and losses that fill you with heartache. If you have a joy or a sorrow to share in a moment, please come up to this pulpit if you are able and share your name and speak from this microphone. Alternatively, you can raise your hand and we will bring the microphone to you. As we begin our sharing, we light a candle of joy, knowing that a joy shared is a joy magnified. And we also light a candle of sorrow, knowing that a burden shared is a sorrow diminished. Let us open our hearts to one another for our brief sharing of joys and sorrows. As we end our sharing, we light a final candle, representing all of those joys and all of those sorrows that we hold silently in the sanctuary of our hearts. May the light of these candles and the compassion of this community remind us that wherever we are on our journey, each of us is worthy of love, and each of us is able to love. Let's return to that deep breath of life and love, always there to ground and guide us. So let's take a breath in and out. Breathe in, perhaps rolling your shoulders back, releasing some bit of tension from your body, your heart, your mind. As we breathe together, we will rest into a time of shared meditation. Will you lift your hearts and join me in the spirit of prayer, listening in these words for the language of faith most meaningful to you? Eternal presence, known by many names, known in many ways. We gather this morning as a community of care and connection, of courage and compassion, of memory and hope. In the sunlit beauty of this day, we give thanks for the joys and blessings of our lives, for time with family and chosen family, for moments of beauty, for the rainbows that peek through the rain. We give thanks for the return of health. We give thanks for the friends who help us make it through hard times. And we hold in our hearts all those who are struggling with their health. Hold in our hearts Jamie and Josh and all those who benefit from our good wishes for health and healing. We hold in our hearts all those who grieve the loss of loved ones recently or long ago. May we find love within loss, gratitude within grief, and may our lives be guided by the highest ideals that we share with those who have gone before. Source of our being, source of our goodness, we open our hearts in compassion for the people of Gaza and all the war-torn corners of the earth that are living in grave humanitarian crises. While none of us alone might know the way through, may we continue to honor one another's humanity. May we continue to move through the world with open hearts and minds and ears, listening for the experience of those who are different than us, listening for the possibilities of connection, listening for the possibilities of peace. We pray this for love's sake. Amen, and blessed be. As you remain seated, will you join me in singing Circle Round for Freedom, number 155? We'll sing it twice.
All
There are moments in our living history when social movements gain momentum. December 1st, 1955, when Rosa Parks did not stand up, was one of those moments. A moment that was surrounded by years and many circles of organizing. Those 25 women who gathered to make flyers were already working together for civil rights. And this moment emerged that this organizing community could rally around for a whole year in every kind of weather to work for the desegregation of public transportation. Summer 2020 was one such moment in our recent history. A time when people took to the streets across this country to join the movement for Black Lives following the brutal killing of George Floyd by a police officer. People gathered in big cities and small towns. Some of you gathered right here in Quincy, on the common in front of the church, and later at the Wollaston Beach. Now, I was on a sabbatical, and so I went to one of the Black Lives Matters marches in Boston. Instead of reaching for my Side with Love stole and a clergy collar, I grabbed my Side with Love baseball hat and a stroller. My 3-year-old son and I were meeting a group of other parents and young children. We would attend the first part of the march together, staying on the edges so we could peel off for nap time. I remember this march so viscerally. The feeling of being together in this huge crowd of people where we were raising our voices again and again, no justice, no peace, raising our voices, and yet with our faces covered by masks in an act of community care as the COVID-19 pandemic raged around us. It was a chaotic moment of anger and fear and hope, and a moment where we cared for one another by showing up in solidarity and showing up with masks and hand sanitizer, and a commitment to building safe community in the midst of all of this chaos. Where do we go from here? Looking back at 2020, looking at 2024, the dawn of another election year, where do we go from here? This is a theme that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. returned to again and again during the final year of his life and writings. Where do we go from here? It's the title of a speech that he gives in 1967 at the 11th anniversary celebration of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization founded following the success and momentum from the bus boycotts in 1955. And King returned to this phrase in his final book, titled, "Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community?" published in 1967. Both this speech and the book are wide-ranging, looking back at American history, the history of race and racism, and the history of organizing in the previous decade or so. In both the speech and the book, he looks at the challenges and possibilities for future organizing. And in both of these writings, he ends by returning to his ethic of love. King looks pragmatically and yet hopefully at the mixed success of the movement so far, writing, "This is where the civil rights movement stands today. We will err and falter as we climb the unfamiliar slopes of steep mountains. But there is no alternative, well-trod, level path. There will be agonizing setbacks along with creative advances. Our consolation is that no one can know the true taste of victory if he has never swallowed a defeat." We so often teach the civil rights movement as a series of successes rather than the realities of success and adaptation and defeat and adaptation and momentum from one campaign fading away and commitment to another campaign arising. But in his own writings, King, especially later in his work, looked at the different ways that struggles for justice are connected. By 1967, he's being accused of trying to basically be out of his lane. They say, "You're a civil rights leader, you're working for racial justice, focus on that." But he starts getting involved with struggles for economic justice and the anti-war movement, and the ways in which these struggles are interconnected. And in this incredible 1-hour speech where he talks about so much, in this book where he talks about so much, he ends with a returning to his ethic of love. In the book, he talks at the end about the reality that we live in a world house, where we are each connected to one another, and therefore our struggles are connected to one another. He writes in this book and several other speeches that year, "This call for a worldwide fellowship that lifts neighborly concern beyond one's tribe, race, class, and nation is in reality a call for an all-embracing and unconditional love for all men. This often misunderstood and misinterpreted concept has now become an absolute necessity for the survival of man. When I speak of love, I am speaking of that force which all the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of life. Love is the key that unlocks the door which leads to ultimate reality. This Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist belief about ultimate reality is beautifully summed up in the first epistle of St. John. Let us love one another, because love is from God. Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God." These are the words that remind us that he is a minister as well as an activist. His philosophy is intertwined with his theology, this affirmation that we can all know that great love. One of his famous quotes on love that we have returned to several times this past year talks about the connection between love and power, writing, "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love." At the end of that speech, to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, he says, "I have also decided to stick with love. For I know that love is ultimately the only answer to mankind's problems, and I'm going to talk about it everywhere I go. I know it isn't popular to talk about it in some circles today. And I'm not talking about emotional bosh when I talk about love. I'm talking about a strong, demanding love. For I have seen too much hate. I've seen too much hate on the faces of the sheriffs in the South. I've seen hate on the faces of too many Klansmen and too many white citizens counselors in the South to want to hate myself. Because every time I see it, I know that it does something to their faces and their personalities, and I say to myself that hate is too great a burden to bear. I have decided to love." On this Martin Luther King Day weekend, where are we called to practice the liberating love we are talking about this month at church? If in 1967, after all of these struggles and all that he has faced, if Dr. King has said, "I have decided to stick with love," can you say the same? And what might that look like for you? As we rest into our musical interlude in the midst of this two-part sermon, reflect on these words that we've quoted from King about love and ask yourself, how is it that you can stick with liberatory love this season? Where do we go from here? This is a question that we are facing as a country and as a congregation. That charged moment from 2020 has in many ways faded away, but the injustices continue. We've seen some changes in practices of accountability and equality in the institutions in our country. And we've seen a whole lot of backlash, a whole lot of work trying to undo movements for justice, for equity, for diversity. It's been a time of success and failure and adaptation, a time of deepening our commitment and perhaps disengaging. So where do we go from here? In this moment when our country seems so chaotic and so divided, and hope and community seems so far away. Where do we go from here? How do we go from here? For over 3 years, United First Parish Church has co-sponsored a weekly Quincy Standout for Black Lives, forged in that chaotic moment of 2020, a community answer to stand out, perhaps standing, perhaps sitting, but to stand out as a moral witness, to say again and again, Black lives matter. The truth of all lives matter happens when Black lives matter. This has been a moral campaign. It hasn't had one particular political goal, but rather has kept the need for racial justice in the moral awareness of the city of Quincy. This moral witness has overlapped with different local and state organizing campaigns from time to time, but it hasn't had a single political goal. And yet has become this amazing site and source of community organizing in the city of Quincy. It's been a way that a dedicated team has said again and again, we choose loving community over divisive chaos. And as we have seen across the decades, sometimes the strategies of our movements change and shift, and we try new things. When I look at that book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, one of the things that King is writing about in 1967 is what we might call intersectional struggle. He's looking at the ways in which struggles for racial equality and struggles for economic equality and anti-war and so many things are mixed in together. He writes, "The future of the deep structural changes we seek will not be found in the decaying political machines. It lies in the new alliances of Negroes, Puerto Ricans, labor, liberals, certain church and middle-class elements." He continues, "The art of alliance politics is more complex and intricate than is generally pictured. It's easy to put exciting combinations on paper, but we deceive ourselves if we envision that the same combination backing structural change, sorry, I lost my place there. A true alliance is based upon self-interest of each component group and common interest into which they emerge. This is no mere academic exercise to scrutinize alliance relationships. They are key to political progress. Where do we go from here? We go seeking new and renewed partnerships. I don't have a single answer to that question, and indeed, Dr. King didn't have a single answer to that question. But he named the necessity and complexity of trying it out, of finding the new alliances, finding the ways in which our commitment to that world house of love overlaps. So friends on the journey, as we consider individually and collectively where we go in the struggles for justice, let us choose community over chaos. Let us choose community that is grounded in fierce love. Let us be bold in the partnerships we build. Let us be caring and compassionate in how we sustain those partnerships. Let us deepen our commitment to love and be aware of the power we have and the power we share. Let us pair our love and our power in order to continue to build the world we dream about. May it be so. Amen. Invite you to rise and join me in body or spirit, singing hymn number 1028, Fire of Commitment, in Singing the Journey.
Faith
seated. We drink from wells we did not dig, and we worship in a sanctuary we did not build. As a voluntary association, we are sustained through the gifts and generosity of our members and friends, gifts of money, gifts of time, gifts of organizing, gifts of showing up for one another, gifts of standing out and making signs and bringing cookies and taking care of the kids and supporting one another to be living our values. And so before we take our monetary offering, I invite folks, I want to start with Mimi and Claire. Would the two of you stand up? You've gotten really good at it on Thursdays. Guys, organizing is imperfect. We haven't changed the world, but these faithful people have led an over 3-year campaign, and they deserve our accolades. So I applaud you. And they didn't do it alone. So this happened for over 3 years on a Thursday afternoon when lots of folks were working from home. Maybe more of us could be there. Some of us were working or at school or doing all sorts of things and couldn't be there all the time or maybe ever. And yet, lots of us showed up. So if you were at the Standout, even once over the last 3.5 years, I invite you to stand up as you are able or raise your hands up high. Yeah. Thank you all. You may be seated. And we know this witness is joined by members of our congregation who aren't in this room right now, and joined by community members across the Quincy area. We don't know where this movement will go, but we do know that this congregation will continue to share our resources to support the work for justice. We will share our building here in the heart of Quincy. We will share our front steps on that lovely protest pavilion out there. We will share our time. We will share our voice. And in order to do that, we need to sustain our organization financially. If this is your first time worshiping with us, we invite you to let the offering plate pass you by. Your presence here today is your gift to us, and we hope you will join us following this service for social hour. You can give online at ufpc.org and clicking on the donate button or placing an offering in the plate this morning. Will the ushers please come forward to support, so that the offering to support the good works of United First Parish Church might be joyfully given and know it will be gratefully received. Here at United First Parish Church, we gather in many ways for worship, religious education, community, and more. As always, you can read about our ongoing and upcoming programs in your order of service announcement insert. Of particular note, tomorrow, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, from 2 o'clock to 3:30, we will be having our third annual Martin Luther King Day Standout, Quincy for Black Lives, on the steps of the portico. We're going to also have some music, some words from King, perhaps some words from our leaders. So we encourage you to come to that. Bring your other friends and neighbors from the Quincy area as well. And I haven't checked the weather. And long johns. Yes. As we heard in the message for all ages, proper footwear and coats are important for standing out in nearly all weather. So yes, come prepared as we raise our voice, continue our moral witness of the importance of agitating and advocating for justice. And then save the date that towards the end of this month, on Friday, the 26th, we are having a game night and potluck. So if you're interested in bringing in food for the potluck, there is a sign-up sheet in the parish hall. You can speak with Marie Louise with any questions about that. And now let us return to that breath of life and love. And I invite you to rise as you're willing and able, and place your hands over your heart for our words of benediction. Words by Reverend Rebecca Parker. Even when our hearts are broken by the failure of others or our own failure cutting into our lives, even when we have done all we can and life is still broken, there is a universal love that has never broken faith with us and never will. May we go in peace and go in love to be a blessing to the world. And I invite you to turn towards the center aisle so that we might offer one another a shared sung benediction as I extinguish the chalice. Blessed be.